Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Quantum Acacias. My name is DeeDee, and Happy New Year! Today is January 1st, 2026. I'm going to be posting quite a few videos just throughout January, some all the way from back in November. Not all the way, it was like 2 months ago, child. But I'm going to be posting videos and things like that throughout the year. I'm also going to be starting back up my Dimensional Dreams podcast. I'm still deciding if I want to pick it up from Audioship 4 years ago. I did have a podcast, Dimensional Dreams, or maybe I was calling it Interdimensional Dreams. I've had quite a few things online here and there. And then it was with Audioship, and then Audioship turned into a Spotify podcast, and at that time I just stopped the podcast. I could have kept going, but yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to pick it up a part of the Spotify and then put links to it on YouTube, or if I'm just going to restart the podcast on YouTube just in general. So anyways, stick around, subscribe, all those fun things. As we get to the subscriber amount, which I think is 500 right now, I'll definitely go live and we can talk about dreams, spirituality. And if you are interested and want to talk about your experiences, definitely can come and be a guest on the podcast. That'll be fun. Any more announcements? quantumacacias.etsy.com. I am building up the Etsy shop. I'm still, putting different services on there. This month, I'm going to be working on the Future Manifestation course. After that, I'm doing a Mars Revolution. So those are the two things that I'm completing this year. After I complete those two things, I'm going to figure out what other big projects, because I definitely want to do the Future Incarnation course. That's a whole different thing. Okay. It's not a beast. It's a whole different thing. Okay. I was about to say it's a whole other beast, but it's not a beast. It's essential. It's essential. And that connects into the dream on here about the heirloom, going back in time and getting an heirloom, an apport, and bringing it into the present moment, which is very trippy. So anyways, today I wanted to talk about two different dreams, the one that I had last night, and then I'm going to talk about one that I had a while ago. And I don't remember when I had this other one, but it talks about Eos. So yeah, there's been a lot going on in a lot of these videos that I'm going to be posting over January and probably throughout the year. I'm going to be talking about how 2026 was feeling like for me a year of Saturn, of getting things in order, getting your timeline in order, and then making sure that you walk on your timeline. Okay, so this is about hitting goals this year. It also, I feel is a big opportunity of money. Okay, so not just random money and things like that, but setting a goal for your money. And then when the money comes, making sure that you use it for what you said you were going to use it for. I feel this is a great year for clearing debt. Okay. So if you have student loans, if you have a big, amount that you owe a family member or something like that, I feel this is a great year for that as well. So this is a year of manifesting with specifics. Okay. Specifics. Okay. So I went to sleep last night after the new year. I did setting some intentions, things like that. I also went into the new year, making sure that I had some green on. I did eat those grapes. Okay. Me and Ray and I, child, we ate the grapes kind of sort of under our table, 12. And then before that, I actually ate 13 by myself for the 13 moon cycles, and set intentions. And then I just had the inspiration to get a pink candle for love, aesthetics, which is going to be for the Acacias Ascension channel. I'm going to be working on the cosmetic subliminals this year. That is a really big thing. Eventually I'm going to be putting into existence a cosmetic hypnosis clinic. More on that later. And then also for just sweetening life and more feminine energy this year for myself. And then I heard to also paint my nails green. So that's for wealth, abundance, for love, and also consistency. And as I was going into Walmart, I was seeing it as like a greenish blue. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like a dark kind of emerald, but with blue. And I just picked up one that I saw, and it was mermaid magic. So I'm like, okay, interesting. Okay, sure, let's do it. Yes, and there's this whole thing about Guatemala green and seraphonite, which I talked about in a previous video, so I'll be posting that. And this color is like a greenish blue. It's definitely giving mermaid water sparkle vibes. So yeah, let's talk about last night. So the interesting thing is that I set my intention this year of like the energies that I was going to focus on this year. Okay, along with myself. So I set the intentions of who I wanted to work with this year and what capacity, because like I said, if you're in the same energy as me this year, there's a lot of focus on Saturn, on time, and hitting goals, results this year. Okay, and I feel like sometimes being empathetic, there's kind of like a sway in a sense of wanting to go with the flow, right? With the water and energy. But also, the water is not on a timeline, a time schedule, right? And a lot of the time under the water, there might be reflections towards the top of the surface of light, but it is kind of perpetually at the depths within darkness. And so there is this going with the flow aspect of it, and I love that. But the thing about earth in general, right, which is water and land, is that we do experience time, and then in this type of community that we have on the land, it is essential to everyday life being a part of the collective. You do want to get back into a quote unquote time routine in some type of form or fashion, right? And then kind of going with the flow and taking yourself out of time can have certain detrimental impacts, especially if you're a parent, if you're trying to hold on to, a more traditional job or something like that. So, I'm always kind of weary when people talk about, that, time is an illusion to a certain extent, but also from another perspective, it's very important to also recognize the power of creating an egregor, right? And time itself is different than the egregor, but the egregor of the use of time in order to organize and structure your day, because it is an egregor and we create it in that sense, it can be a quote unquote illusion that you don't technically have to follow, doesn't mean that it doesn't still have really potent and great significance. Okay. So, last night, my dream, which I love when this happens, because it's kind of like getting your unconscious involved, is that I got information about something that I wasn't even particularly thinking about for 2026, but it makes a lot of sense. So last night, 10:47, yes. So last night, because I was actually doing this earlier at like 9:09, and I went over time, and I wasn't be like, let's just go over time. Then I was like, no, because I'm focusing on time this year and I want to keep it under 30 minutes. So redo it. Let's do it again. Okay. And so last night, what I was dreaming about was actually a connection to the Gorgon, or is it Gorgo? Steno. Now I know that's probably not how you say it, but bear with me, okay? Steno. And Steno is considered to be the oldest of the Gorgon sisters, okay? The youngest one is Medusa, and then I forgot how to say the middle one's name, child. Love her, love you. Okay. About Steno. And in this dream, what was being said was that to remember that the Gorgons are directly associated to time. Okay, they are also fates. Okay, now I'm not sure exactly if they talk about the connection to fate, but they are like the Twisted Sisters, where they share an eye. Okay, they have a fate function. I feel like in the Gorgon function, this is more of like a protection of sacred wisdom also doubling as like a protection of beauty. So in my opinion, what I have seen in the astrals and things like that, that Athena, who is connected to Ayatna, okay, that's a whole nother conversation, who's connected to Ayatna, who is connected to, okay, sorry, I paused it for just a moment. I had a child come outside, and then I got this call. It was like, are you Amrita? Which is interesting because Amrita is very significant, but yeah. So anyways, it was talking about that they are, to remember this aspect of the fates, okay? And then as the Gorgon, we're talking about kind of baneful protection of deep wisdom, and also, hold on. Okay, they call it back for her again. Okay. Of wisdom and also beauty, okay? And so they were talking about that fate has to do with dates, okay? It has to do with time. And it is very specific, fated dates and times. And so I thought that was very interesting because I wasn't actually thinking about fate in relation to time, or necessarily the Gorgon, like definitely Medusa energy. And I talk about that in some of the other videos, but specifically the connection to Steno. I know that's probably not how you pronounce it, but child. And the interesting thing is that I was just on TikTok and I came across this thing, and I love when this happens. I came across this video of this guy who was talking about the black obsidian mirror and what they used to use it for, like back in the day. And one of the first times within the last like 5 years that I talked about Steno was actually in an astral, saw about her. Was actually in an astral in 2022 or 2023, where before bed, I was actually sitting on this throne. I was seeing this visualization of me sitting on this throne, and I was actually peering into a black mirror. And as I was peering into the black mirror, I said to give me a reflection of who I am or who I have been. And as I was peering into it, I literally started to feel like there was this crouching darkness, crouch. That's a whole nother conversation, child, because Celtic stuff has been coming up, and he came up last night, which I think this is interesting. This connection is happening, but crouch, okay. And then there's also this connection with Kern, Kerne, which could be connected to Sir Nunez, but also Kern connected to, what are they? Were they the Irish people, like in the woods, like a band of people in the woods? I think it was Ireland, but I think they were Celtic as well, if I'm not mistaken. But also there's a connection with that and Ethiopia. That's a whole nother conversation, but the Ethiopia connection is directly associated to North Africa, Libya, Medusa energy. It's a whole other thing, and I want to get too deep into that because then I'm going to go over time. But anyways, then I'm going to go over time, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so yeah, let's just like stick with the fates right now. Okay, so Steno. Okay, sure, that's not how you say it. And the fates. Okay. That was kind of choppy, but I think I'm going to put it there because they are connected to North Africa, Libya, and then there's also, of course, the Carthage, okay, connection. So Kern or CERN is also, which they could pronounce that also a different way, but it looks like CERN with an extra E at the end. Sometimes it's spelled with a K. And this is connected to this other being that I saw in the acacia tree. It's like a whole thing. Okay. And so anyways, they were basically talking about the importance of time and fate, and to remember that the Gorgons are also the Twisted Sisters. They share an eye. They're connected to blind prophetesses. Okay. So this was also, I was talking about, crouch, and staring into this mirror, I saw myself as a kind of ink blot kind of image of the old hag, and then at certain angles, it would also look like a buzzer, which the vulture is also connected to the acacia tree, okay? The grandmother vulture that sits on the acacia tree. Whole nother conversation. So anyways, I was also hearing this name that was something like Sino. Okay, and at the time I didn't know what it was, but it was also talking about a word that was kind of similar to astraix or Astraea, okay? Which, if you know, that is connected to a star, okay? Astraix, okay? And then you also have the sometimes considered mother or father of the Gorgons, which is Aix, okay? Now, in my dream last night, what I also was seeing was there's this particular restaurant that's very famous in New Orleans called Copeland's. And if you've seen Copeland's before or you look it up, it has like this very specific stylized way that they write Copeland's. And Copeland's, a particular Copeland's, turned into Astraea. And so I was seeing that, but instead of it as Copeland's as this kind of neon sign, it was kind of like a reddish orange kind of neon sign. Instead of Copeland's, it was saying something like MG Gorgo or I couldn't really read it because it was like one of those really thick, bold, cursive kind of letters, and I couldn't really, I think it was MG. Could have been M something else. And then it was something like Gorgo or Gorgon, right? Which is the Gorgons. And I couldn't tell if it was a restaurant or if it was a casino. It kind of had both of those kind of feels to it. But anyways, in New Orleans, Copeland's also turned into Astraea, which is a star. Okay. And that led me also to, because in this dream, there's also this connection to Eos. Now, when I got to Arizona in 2021, I had this dream of literally seeing myself connected to Eos, who is aura, okay? And that's like a whole story. I don't want to get too deep into that, but there was a particular place that when I first came to Arizona, I saw it after this dream, okay? After this dream, I saw this. But now there's also EOS Fitness. I'm not talking about EOS Fitness, but EOS Fitness is definitely in here as well, because we also have an EOS Fitness and like in our area. And I was like, oh my gosh, EOS Fitness as well. But when I first came to Arizona, one of the things I was doing before when I was trying to manifest coming to Arizona was looking into like Craigslist, and I was like, okay, let me just see like if there are any spiritual shops or anything that I can work for when I get to Arizona. This is when we were in the Hilton, and I actually started Dimensional Dreams in the Hilton before I got to Arizona. So, and like I said, I'm sure those episodes are still on there, and you'll hear me talking about like this manifestation of moving to Arizona, and it's like a whole thing, and it's really cool. But anyways, there was a particular spiritual shop called Element of Spirit, EOS, Element of Spirit. So in this particular dream, it starts off and I'm talking to this guy in this car, and he's like sticking his tongue out at me. And in that dream, it's 11 o'clock on the dot. In that dream, I was thinking that it was connected to Kali. However, I'm like, oh, it could also be connected to Medusa. It could also be connected to these Gorgons, these serpentine kind of priestesshood energies, okay? Because Bess also has his tongue out. In the depictions of Medusa and things like that, she also has, her tongue out, right? And then Kali, in her connection to the Naginis, the serpentine, I think they're water snakes, personally, they have their tongue out. Naginis, okay? They have their tongue out. And this is kind of like, in my opinion, a kind of taunting kind of face of like, like a jokester kind of trickster energy to a certain extent, but it's really trying to see if you are actually tuned in and tapped in enough to go beyond that image, to go beyond that ugliness, to go beyond, and it's kind of like this thing of, those that are true of heart can see past this kind of illusion. It's not necessarily an illusion, it's a layer. It's not really an illusion, okay? It's a layer. If you can see beyond this layer to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop, okay? And that's where the beauty, the wisdom, the things are. But you have to have this kind of outer shell, okay? And so anyways, he was like licking his tongue or whatever and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of, this is uncomfortable. And so I'm like, okay, where are we going? You know, I'm like kind of like trying to, you know, switch the subject, because obviously we are in his terrain, okay? Because it wasn't my car that we were in, and he was the driver. I was actually in the back seat, which I'm like, okay, how did I even get in the back seat? But whatever. So I'm like, okay, where are we going? And so we literally pull up to this place that I see Element of Spirit. I kid you not. I've not actually been back to Element of Spirit. Like, I went there like one time and I went and talked to the people, and I didn't have the money to like rent out, because they actually had like a spot not directly there. But when I saw them, they were in kind of like a strip mall, and there was like this masseuse guy, and he had a space, and I was trying to do QHHT sessions there, but I just didn't have the money to keep up with the rent, so I didn't really go back. But I've not been back to Element of Spirit since then, but maybe this year I'll go back and kind of see. But anyways, we end up pulling up to Element of Spirit, and I was like, oh, EOS, yeah, okay. And behind EOS, kind of behind it from my perspective, was actually to the left of it, was like this big Arabian Nights looking place. And he was like, I have to go talk to like my deity or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he kind of walked somewhere. I didn't know where he walked, but it was kind of like in the strip mall, kind of. And so I ended up just going into Element of Spirit, which also had a frog head on it, which is very significant in my world. The frogs, the amphibians, okay? And so I walk into Element of Spirit and everything like that, and I'm looking around in the astrals, okay? I'm looking around, which is EOS, okay? Also connected to the dawn, okay? And EOS is also associated to CERN or Kern, okay? She was supposed to have been born there and then conceived, I forgot who it was, there with Tithonus. Okay, so she's directly also connected to Kern. Kern is also connected to Forces, who's supposed to be the father of the Gorgons, Echidna, and the other ones, I forgot. They're all connected to Kern, but I think that they were supposed to at some point be in conflict with the Amazonians, with Libya, and so they probably have some type of mixture of those two, probably. You know what I'm saying? It's usually how it is. At some point after the conflict, it's hard to know who's who. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, so I go in there, and then I see this guy who like sticking out his tongue and stuff like that. And he's like moving around, and he's moving around kind of like, you know, suspicious, like. And so I'm like, okay. And it was like he was kind of in cahoots with the people at EOS, in the sense of like, not in a weird way, but just like, it seemed like he had asked them a question, and he'd asked them a question like about me, because he wanted to find something out about me. And I don't know what he said, like, that made them interested in. Okay, sorry, my husband was coming out to ask me a question. Okay, so, and they were asking a question about me, right? Okay, so I don't know what exactly he said, but it was kind of like, I guess he was like, you know, I brought this woman in here and I want to see like what you guys can find out about her. But he was kind of trying to do it, you know, like subtly, without me necessarily like knowing about him. For whatever reason, they were like, okay, cool, we'll see. And so I peeped the energy of that. But in general, right, you know, I might feel like something is going on, but more likely than not, and it's like a strength and can get you in trouble. More often than not, I'm probably gonna go with the energy of like what they are portraying, because I'm curious about like where they're going with it. So I was just like, oh, okay, let me just kind of, you know what I'm saying, let me just kind of act a little bit oblivious and, you know, see what the deal is. So anyways, this woman comes up to me, and she clearly is like a healer, a shaman, a seer, something like that. Like, I can feel it off of her. And so she's like, hey, I want you to come over here. We have like this particular thing, and it was kind of like some type of barrel or something like that. And like, she wanted me to like stick my hand into this barrel. This barrel looked a lot, I'm not going to even kid you, like what was in the barrel looked a lot like the memory thing from Harry Potter, right? Where Dumbledore stores his memories. And like, he like takes it out with the wand and puts them in this kind of swirling energy light kind of situation that looks like threads of memories. Now, threads of memories is significant because also have association to Newt neat. I believe that they are the same quote unquote goddess energy, just different aspects, different dimensional aspects. Okay. And she is connected to the 8-pointed star. She is connected to time. She is connected to super string theory. She's also the mother of the S's. Okay. SS. That's a whole nother conversation, because Miguel Serrano is like Maya, the illusion. And there is this, female spider like demiurge that is entrapping the Aryan Brotherhood in space-time reality and in dense matter and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's a whole nother conversation. I can't have that conversation right now. That's a whole nother conversation. But Aya with Maya, Aya is in Aryan, okay? You're within her. And the reason that they feel trapped is because they're not trying to connect to her, because they're still under that fear energy that they are being entrapped, right? Sometimes a bond, right? A knot, okay? So knot is not in opposition to anything. It's not either or. Knot is together. You knot it together at a single point so that you can interact with every aspect of it. It is a binder. It is a grounding thing. Reality itself is grounding. Could you imagine if we were walking around and everybody is slipping back in time with multiple different dimensions and realities and past life selves? Some people want that experience, and that experience is out there, but reality has to have a foundation and a grounding for you to experience it in a way that also is, in a certain sense, linear, right? And that is the thread. That is a straight line. That is the one. It's not binding unless you do negative things and then you get entrapped to your decisions. And then you want, anyways, let me not get into that. That's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, Eos is also, the dawn is also connected to the web. Okay. Anyways, so she's like, come and put your hands in this barrel because we see something in you. You know how they like start talking to you like that? I can see something in you. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can. Oh, what do you see? She's like, just come and put your hand in this barrel right now. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I stick my hand in the barrel. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Let's find out, even though like I know what my associations are. So this is more like for them, but I'm curious as like, what information they're trying to get. So literally, like, I'm not even making it up. Literally, she's like, oh my gosh. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh, like, what did you see? She's like, oh, you're a weaver. And I'm like, uh-huh. And she was like, oh, yeah, so I've got these crystals over here for And I see her give this guy like this sort of look of like, nah, like, no. So I don't know like what he was planning to do with the information, but by her understanding that I am a weaver, okay, weaver of fates, okay, that's a whole nother conversation, but weaver energy, which is also featured in Discovery of Witches, okay, whatever the plan was, she was like, yeah, like, cut that immediately. So I don't know what he was planning to do with that information or whatever, but she was like, yeah, this is not, like, that's not the one. You know what I'm saying? And so then she's like, well, anyways, I have these crystals over here and I've got these things over here. I've got this. So, like, scratch the plan. Whatever the plan is, cancel it, okay? This is not recommended. And I thought that would be interesting because waking up on that, 11/11 period, okay? Waking up on that dream this year, if you are also experiencing similar things, you have connections to these type of energies, especially Amazonians, Libyans, Medusa energy, Ethiopia, Africa in general. You've been seeing connections to that, to Saturn, especially as grandmother time. Okay, we talk about father time, grandmother time. These could definitely be really big themes coming up. Fate, time, and being ahead of time. Okay, so not just on time. On time is technically ahead of time. So that's what I have for you guys. I'm sending you lots of love in this new year. And subscribe. Come back and see me. Bye.